such a dramatic piece of engineering legerdemain that it even impressed Kennedy Launch Operations Director and former West Point tackle, Rocco Petrone. Somebody in our shop came up with the idea of using giant tracked machines like those used in strip mining. What evolved was the unique crawler, or, more politely, transporter. As built by Ohio's Marion Power Shovel Company, the crawler took shape with 8 tracks, each 7 by 41 feet, with cleats like a Sherman tank, except that each cleat weighed a ton. Mounted over these 8 tracks was the platform, bigger than a baseball diamond, on which the Apollo Saturn V and its mobile launcher would ride majestically from VAB to pad at 1 mile per hour. The package weighed 9,000 tons, 2/3 cargo, 1/3 crawler. NASA itself manufactures very little of what it flies. Instead, for Apollo 11, it relied on 12,000 American corporations and 400,000 employees, almost all of whose output ended up at the Vehicle Assembly Building, VAB, which Petrone called an intricate machine that assembled the vehicle in its final phases. The Saturn V rocket's bottom stage was built by Boeing at the Michoud Assembly Factory in New Orleans, barged down the Mississippi River, around the Florida Peninsula, and through a series of canals to the VAB, the great shimmering reflecting pool that has graced so many NASA launch photos is in fact a turning basin for its arriving barges. The booster's Stage 2 was built by North American Rockwell in Seal Beach, California, shipped through the Panama Canal to be test-fired at NASA's Mississippi facility, and then shipped to Kennedy. Stage 3 originated with Douglas in Sacramento, California, and was flown to Kennedy via Aero Spaceline's specially manufactured version of the Boeing Stratocruiser, the Super Guppy. The Guppy had been created solely through the efforts and finances of Aero's founder, John Conroy, who, against many doubters, insisted he could turn a generic cargo jet into a carrier that would fit NASA's stratospheric requirements. The agency had previously tried using Zeppelins to transport its enormous rockets, an experiment that did not end well. That same plane carried the command and service modules from North American's Downey, California plant, while the lunar module, as light a ship as any in history, traveled by train and truck from Grumman's factory in Bethpage, New York, to Florida. After seeing their bucket arrive factory fresh from manufacturer North American Aviation in its blue packing sheet, the Apollo 9 crew had named their command module Gumdrop and their lunar module Spider for its arachnid appearance. When Apollo 10 in turn christened their ships Charlie Brown and Snoopy, Assistant Administrator for Public Affairs Julian Scheer wrote Manned Spacecraft Center Director George M. Lowe to suggest that perhaps the Apollo 11 crew might consider being less flippant in naming their craft. Scheer, in fact, would end up suggesting Columbia for the CM, while Jim Lovell, Neil Armstrong's backup commander, would recommend Eagle for the LEM. Both ideas would be adopted. As each rocket part arrived at Kennedy, it was individually inspected, mated to its nethers in the VAB, and the whole then given a plugs-in test, a complete simulation of every dial, switch, pump, light, fan, valve, and motor that would be used on the mission. The near sadism that had marked the earliest rounds of psychological and physical testing of the Mercury astronauts now found its match in the torturing of these machines. Columbia and Eagle and their environmental, communications, electrical, and rocket subsystems were subjected to fire, ice, collision, shocks, vibration, dust, rain, and 587,500 forms of inspection. After reaching the distant loneliness of Pad 39A's octagon-shaped concrete slab built hard against the sea, Saturn V Apollo 11 underwent a flight readiness test. Then its tanks were pumped with liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, jet-grade